Hi everyone, my name's Julia and I'm a physical therapist at Breakthrough. I'm here today with a group of mobility exercises that will be helpful for runners. So these mobility exercises can be paired along with a dynamic warm-up, as we went over in a different video, just to really get you ready for your run. So if you're experiencing any mobility restrictions, these exercises are really going to target the hips, a little bit of the low back, and the ankles, targeting some mobility that you need as a runner. Okay, so let's take a look at these exercises. The first one is a hip hug. So you're going to stand nice and tall, bring one knee up, and hug it into your chest. So this is going to work on your glutes and kind of your posterior hip mobility. So stand nice and tall, upright. You don't want to be slumping over, and just hug your knee into your chest. This is a brief stretch, kind of a quick stretch and then release, not the static stretching. So this is kind of dynamic stretching and mobility exercises. And this is what we want to do before a workout or before a run. Save the static stretching, the long hold stretching, for after your run. And we'll go over some static stretches in a future video. Okay, so that was the hip hug. The next one, which is going to target, again, hip mobility, kind of the outside of your hip here, and your hip rotators, is a hip cradle. So you're going to grab the instep of your foot and pull your whole leg up, kind of in a figure 4 position. Pull your toes towards your knee. You'll feel the stretch a little bit more that way. And then release your foot back down to the ground. So again, quick stretch and release. Another one, if you feel like you don't really feel this stretch, another one I like to do is a standing figure 4 stretch. So you're going to cross your ankle of your opposite knee. Again, pull your toes towards your knee, and then sink back into a single leg squat. And you should feel a pretty good stretch on the outside of your hip here. So keep your back nice and long, and you're pushing your hips back to sink into that single leg squat. You don't want to let your knees slide forward. That just puts unnecessary extra stress on your knee. So really sink those hips back here in this standing figure 4 stretch. This is a nice one. It's also part of the dynamic warm-up. The next one is going to focus on your hip flexors. So it's going to be a half kneeling hip flexor dynamic stretch. So come down to half kneeling, and then you want to make sure you're not just arching your back to get this stretch. So tuck your hips under slightly, like a dog tucking its tail between its legs. And you're going to use this glute and push yourself forward in a little dynamic hip flexor stretch. You should be feeling it on the front of your hip here. So this is just a little half kneeling hip thruster. Good. And so keep your trunk nice and tall and upright. You can switch legs here. So you may wonder, make sure you tuck your hips under, like a dog tucking its tail between its legs, and then start that hip thruster. So you may wonder, how many of these should I do on each side? It's really up to you. So if you're feeling really tight, you may take more repetitions to feel loose and ready to go. So it might be like 20 to 30 repetitions. If you're pretty loose and warm already, it might be like 4 or 5, and then you say, that's it, I'm ready to go. So it's really up to you. You just want to make sure your body feels loose, mobile, and ready to run. So for me, my left hip feels a little tighter, so I'm just going to do a few more on this side compared to what I did on the right side. So go by how you feel. And this shouldn't be painful. It should be kind of a nice stretch here. Okay. So there's also a standing option for the hip thruster, the hip flexor stretch. So you can do it standing, one foot in front of the other, because this is if kneeling really doesn't work for your knees. You can do it standing instead. So again, kind of tuck your hips under like a dog tucking its tail between its legs, and then you're just going to rock forward and get a stretch in that hip flexor. Again, keeping yourself nice and tall here. Don't let yourself arch into your lower back to get this stretch. So we can do it on the other side too. So tuck those hips under, and then kind of rock forward and back into this hip flexor stretch. So a couple options there. The next couple are going to be down on the ground in a kneeling position. Okay, so our next one is going to be a dynamic calf stretch and an ankle mobilization. So you'll get in a kneeling position, one foot in front of the other. Again, if this really bothers your knee, you can put like a pillow under your knee or something, or a cushion. So you're going to kind of come down and then rock your knee forward over your toes. I know we always say, like, keep your knee behind your toes, but this one, we're trying to get some ankle mobility here, and we're in this kneeling position, so there's not a whole ton of weight going through your knee, so it's okay. And it's fine to do in moderation. So as you can see, I'm pretty flexible, so I can keep my heel on the ground with my knee in front of my toe. But if you're pretty stiff, you might find your heel kind of rising up here. So keep your heel on the ground, and then rock your knee forward. And if you notice you're really tight kind of in one direction more than the other, you can kind of go your knee outside your toes, inside your toes. If you find an area of more restriction, just do a few more repetitions in that direction. Okay, so I'll switch to the other foot. So from the front, going to set up, kind of start rocking your knee forward, and then you can kind of go to the outside of your foot, inside of your foot. Maybe like, oh, I feel a little bit tighter here, so work more to that range, or I feel a little bit more tight on the outside, so work in that range. So again, it's kind of up to you and what your body needs. So the last one is going to be a quadruped hip rocker. So on all fours, hands directly between or beneath your shoulders, and then knees right underneath your hips. And you're just going to rock back. You can have your feet on the ground. Rock back and try and get your butt down to your heels. So again, pretty flexible here, but you might find yourself getting kind of stuck right there. So you just kind of work your way into it, gradually sink deeper and deeper. And here you'll get a little bit of flexion through your lower back, which is fine. That's normal, and we need that right at the end there. However, if you're finding that right here, your back is starting to bend to get your hips lower, you might be a little bit restricted in the hip. So this is something to work on. So just kind of rock back there. And then a variation of this to work on kind of your inner thighs and the inside of your hip is you put your knees out wide, wider than your hips, and then you're going to sink your butt between your heels. So this is kind of an active adductor stretch a little bit here, and also working on mobilizing that inner hip, the inner portion of your hip socket. So just kind of sink back into it and start from the front. Kind of looks like you get your knees nice and wide, and you're just sinking back as far as you can, as comfortably as you can, between your heels here. Okay. So that was all the mobility exercises I have for today. So hopefully you can see how that can help you get all the mobility you need for running, especially in your hips and your ankles, a little bit in your low back. So hopefully you feel nice and warm and ready to run now. So you can combine these mobility exercises with a dynamic warm-up prior to running or prior to any lower body workout here. And so you'll be nice and ready to go. Okay, so hope that helped you, and thanks for watching.